Hey, what's going on YouTube? Odell Hussey here, and we are in my studio here in the beautiful city of San Francisco, California. I'm so excited to be here. This is the reboot of my YouTube channel, of me creating content on a consistent basis for YouTube. This channel will be showing you, some of my photography side of stuff, the video stuff you're seeing now, and then also some illustration and drawing. For this episode, it's gonna be about the gear. I'm gonna do a series of videos where I'm gonna review the gear that I have, the gear that I use, the gear that I've been using over these past few years, and I can give you a really in-depth and a very valued opinion here. So today, we are gonna talk about the 645D. Pentax was not a brand that I was really ever into. I was a Canon guy. But I had a client who needed tabletop work done a few years back, and I wanted to get a sensor that was big so that I could do cropping and repoing in post. So that's what led me to Pentax. I was able to get it used, and I want to preface all of this next series of videos of gear of my own that I would advise you highly, if you're interested in cameras like this, to look in the used market. You can get a body, the 645D body, around $2,500 now, maybe even cheaper. And you can buy the 645Z, which is the newer version of this. It shoots 1080p video for around $4,000. I would just, hey, if you're gonna get this camera, I would just grab this 645D. It's definitely worth it. And I'll go on to explain that a little bit further. So yeah, I used it for the tabletop stuff. Then I almost sold it after that tabletop client went away. But I'm so glad I didn't, and I'm glad I still have it, because now I use it for all my client portrait work, all my promo stuff for clients. It's great for landscape photography. Again, great for portrait studio. It's a good studio camera. It's not an event camera. You're not gonna take this and document a wedding. You might have this on your side to take some portraits at a wedding, or you're just focusing on more controlled environment stuff. It's not a fast camera is what I'm saying. You need a little bit of time when you're composing with this camera. Okay, so on the top you have a set of buttons here. You have two SD card buttons. It records on SD cards, which is fine. For me, it works pretty well. A RAW button, which allows you to control the RAW settings. A bracketing button. On the top, you have a dial here, usual dial. You see these on Nikons, Canons. Has several different modes. There's X mode, which is the mode that works with the flash, with the strobes, and I have Pocket Wizard on here, and those work in concert. As well, there's bulb mode, manual mode, and some other ones that you can get into if you like. I mainly stick to the X, which is the strobe, what I use with my strobes, and then I also use manual and stuff. Like I said, it's not an event camera, but it is a great portrait, landscape, architecture type of camera. Top, you have your typical kind of like control LCD settings. You can control here. Syncs at 125 with strobes. That's what I use. F8 is great. I usually have this on F8 when I'm using strobe. ISO 200 is the lowest, and it goes all the way up to, I think, around 6,400. You're gonna get. I wouldn't push this past too much past 1,000, but that's beside the point. I don't want to talk too much about that. You're gonna mainly be using this in ISO 200 to 800 range in studio or outdoors. So that's basically all you really need to know in terms of that. You're not looking to use this in a dark environment unless you have right controlling light. So what else? Yeah, SD card slot right here. Two SD cards go in here. There is like an HDMI port here as well. You can run it, to a TV. There is a USB, and I think that's so you can like offload the media if you want. My workflow with that is I just take out the SD card and plug it in and take the photos off of the card into my computer. Another couple other cool things, mount here on the bottom so I can get that that horizontal and that vertical mounting, horizontal and then the vertical if you need that. For portraits, you might lock this in. It's really, really cool for that. What else? Right now I have an SDM Pentax 55mm. I'll get into the glass here in a second more. So that's basically it. You know, there's a few ISO control up here as well, but that's the basics of it. It's a pretty straightforward situation. Here I'll bring up the menu just so you can sort of see here, just your basic back menu. I have, shows me my ISO, shows me all those controls. I won't get into the menu. I'll just tell you this much: it's a lot easier to use than some other camera bodies, even Canons. I think there's just not a lot there. There's a time-lapse function. You're not shooting video. You don't have to worry about that. You're just basically controlling your ISO, and your shutter speed, and the rest. And again, slow-moving beast. I will show you again. Okay, so we'll go quickly on the lens glass since we're close up here. 55 SDM. This is their newer lens. It's really light lens. It's not very made of very strong materials. It's great for portraiture. It does 2.8, so you can get that shallow depth of field if you want to. You want to mess around with that with outdoor light. It looks really great. In a studio, you're shooting around f8 and above, somewhere in that range, and so it's a great lens for that. It's a great a lens to take portraits with. So again, I'll switch up here. Another lens here. This one's another great one. A macro lens here. It goes f4, and you have easy to mount. I can control my f-stop right here on the lens. The last lens that we just looked at, this one you cannot do that. This newer one, you got to do it within the camera, which is not that big of a deal. But here you can control it up here. I can go to auto if I want. I can, usually I'm on F4 there and doing it manually. I've got a little lock it into auto, manual in terms of the focusing. Really handy, great lens to have. I got this one for a little bit over 1,000, this one for under 1,000. These are two lenses I would definitely recommend for this camera. Again, this lens, 120 millimeter, is great for portrait work if you want to use it for that. Yeah, so these are two great choices. Let's go over here to some legacy glass. Now, those of you who know Pentax, they've been making cameras for a long time. I don't know what's going to happen with Pentax, the company, but I'll put this on real quick. This is a legacy lens, so this is for film, for when these medium format cameras were film, and they work with the digital body. They're actually fairly quick with the digital body. You don't have as much lag time as you do with this new digital one, but much heavier, makes this thing a real load to hold. But man, that's all fine. If you're getting this camera, you're not going to be swayed by the weight of it. I can use this outdoors, and I have used it at Ocean Beach. I'll show you some shots of that here. I'll show you some footage where I am working with it in the field and with a client. As you can see here, some examples of some of the photos I've taken. What do I like about this camera? What would be a reason why you'd want a camera like this? Again, as the sensors get bigger, it's nice to have that large sensor size to crop in on your images and reposition things. It's really good for that, and it's just nice to have that real estate. I mean, you will see it in post when you bring it into Lightroom. Again, my workflow is just I just use the SD cards and offload that way. But you can connect USB as well. It's practical in that if you can use it for a number of different things. It's just not practical if you want to shoot events, maybe a wedding, but where you're doing portraits of the bride and groom and they're posed, where you can control the environment. It's better in those situations. It's not going to be a run and gun camera. I've tried to bring it along in those situations, and it's just really difficult when things are moving fast you need a fast camera like a Nikon or a Canon, and we'll talk about that later on in other videos. But I would say it's practical in that you can get this camera now, this body, fairly cheap on a used market at Arama, B&H, Lens Authority has, lensrental.com sister site, Lens Authority. That's actually where I got this body a few years back. You can get the body for around $2,500 and the Z for $4,000. I would just go with the D. The Z, you get a little bit more megapixels there, bigger sensor, but this is more than enough, and it's cheap to get in. glass you can get in fairly cheap. So overall, I would say if you're a Pentax buff, you're probably already on this. But if you're someone who's just discovering the brand, they're a fairly cool company, I would say. The camera's fairly easy to use in terms of menu system. It's practical only if you're doing stuff that require you to repo the shots and punch in and deliver something that's smaller, but you can do a lot with that. So it would work for someone who needs that. But if you're someone who needs who wants to cover events, you want to do a number of different things, you're going to probably want to go Pentax. I mean, you want to go Canon or Nikon. I'm tired. This is like my 4th take of this video, man. I'm gonna be honest with you here. And I'm doing my best after being up since 5 a.m. Yeah, so I would recommend it. It gets 2 thumbs up from me. I'm glad I kept it. I'm glad I didn't sell it when I almost did. It's great for portrait work. It's great for studio. If you have a studio space, look into it. You can certainly still rent it for really cheap now. You can get it for really cheap now on the used market. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you. That's my review. I hope you enjoyed this gear. I'm sure I missed some things. If I did, please chime in below. Let me know if you have more questions. I'm sure you will. If you want to support me, you can subscribe here. Please do so. This is the re-upping of this channel, of the content here, and I'm very, very excited to do so. You can support me and check me out on Facebook, Instagram. If you want to support me on a deeper level through Patreon, you can do that. All these links will be below. I'll leave links to B&H and Adorama and all the places that I sort of endorse where I've gotten gear before. Yeah, man, have fun, keep shooting. You don't need to spend a lot of money to get into digital medium format cameras nowadays. They're so cheap. I don't know how long Pentax will be around. I hope they last because I think they care about what they do. The quality is there. You can feel it. It's a little bit of a different thing than Pentax, than Canon or Nikon or even Fuji for that matter. But yeah, great camera, fun time shooting with it. Take care. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you soon, YouTube. Peace.